to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I am half your host, Barry Constantine.
And as always, I am the other half, Derek Ferguson.
How you doing today, Derek?
I am doing moderately well. I'm about like 90%. Like I was telling you before we got on, I'm still wrestling with a little respiratory infection dealio here, folks. So if you hear me coughing or whatever, that's what it is. But don't worry about it. I'm taking medication for it. I'm seeing the doctor. I'm okay.
That's good. Yeah. I'm doing okay over here myself. I'm getting into, I'm almost finished up with Ghost of Tsushima on my PS4. Because I bought it, right before the holidays, and like I played it a bunch then, and then I kind of got distracted by other stuff, and now I'm getting back into it and finishing up, and it's so much fun.
I am so pissed that thing is not on for the Xbox One.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sure they'll eventually.
Like a blast.
It is. It's so especially, and like I know you're a samurai fan too, and it is exactly like living in a Kurosawa movie.
Yeah, because as I understand, they have like a black and white Kurosawa mode.
Yep.
You can play it. Oh
yeah.
my God.
And it's very easy. Like when I heard about that, I was kind of, I was a little bit not sure what to think of it, because usually when they have those types of game modes, it's like if you enter that mode, you have to play the whole game in that mode. Like you can't switch it off. This allows you to switch it off. Like you just hit the pause menu, you can easily toggle it on or off.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game I have literally not heard a bad word about that game.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It just says it's absolutely good. I'm hoping sooner or later. I'm pretty sure Microsoft will make a deal, and it'll be available for the Xbox One, and which means that I will have to sequester myself in the basement and tell Patricia not to bother me for at least 2 or 3 days. Speaking of samurai, have you ever seen this film series called Hanzo the Razor?
No, but I've seen it on HBO Max.
Yeah, I watched it. Based on, I read a review by our good friend Mark Bousquet.
Mm-hmm.
He had written a review of it, and it's a trilogy of movies. And I want you to watch it, and then after that, we'll talk. I thought maybe you knew about it, you had heard about it. I don't want to say anything because usually when people say, well, I want you to see it because you have to see it to believe it, and it ends up being overhyped. In this case, I do think that this is legitimate. You have to see it to believe it. Just watch it, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to.
I said, well, you probably seen it already.
No, I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Okay, watch it. HBO Max, folks. It's a trilogy called Hanzo the Razor. Watch it, and you let me know what you think.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to add that to the list of stuff we're going to have you on Japan on Film for then.
I don't know. Like I said, watch it first.
Okay. All right. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Anyway, any news or stuff? I haven't really been paying much attention to stuff lately. How about you?
I haven't been paying any yet. If there has been, I haven't noticed anything. I haven't noticed anything since the TV show that links up to what we're talking about today.
Yeah,
since the end of WandaVision, that's it. I'm wiped out.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was such an epic finale. The only two things is I did watch the latest episode of Superman and Lois last night.
Okay.
And that had a really awesome opening sequence, right? Where he they're repainting a room and at the farmhouse, and it's like this kind of like family moment, and then all of a sudden Clark hears something going on in China, and then he just like zips away and he saves. And it very much felt like the Golden Gate Bridge scene in Superman the movie.
Oh, okay.
It felt very much like that, but it was a much more epic scale. Like, you know what? It's really amazing watching, like, every time I watch an episode of the show, I'm really amazed at how much they put into this show's budget.
Yeah, it's not a cheap show.
No.
It definitely isn't a cheap show. I usually don't watch it on the CW the night it airs. I usually watch it the next day
Yeah.
On
the app.
The app.
Yeah, that's what I do too. Because I got an app for it on my Apple TV. So I get home from work on Wednesday night, and that's Wednesday morning for you guys in the States. So it's up there by that time.
Yeah. So I haven't watched it yet. Finally, I have been watching Titans.
Oh, really? What do you think so far?
So you know what? I didn't think I was going to like a grim and gritty Titans, but I don't mind this.
Yeah, I had the same feeling when I saw when they had the trailer and they put so much emphasis on the fuck Batman thing, but
yeah,
I surprised. I thought it actually did kind of fit.
I'm up to the episode now where Raven she meets the Doom Patrol.
Oh, that's a great episode.
Yeah, I'm up to that. Okay, so this is what I want to ask you. So I thought that according to the Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Doom Patrol are on their own Earth, and the Titans are on their own Earth. So what are they on? Are they on their own Earth together, or are they on separate Earths?
That's a good question because Crisis came out, I think, after the first season of Titans.
Right.
So they very well could have split them onto two separate Earths, but I don't think they've made one too much of a distinction one way or the other because, I mean, Doom Patrol, they don't really interact a whole lot with the larger DC universe anyway. It is just kind of like its own thing, which, if you look back at like the comics, especially like the Morrison stuff or like the who was the woman who followed him after, I'm blanking on her name, but when it was very much part of the Vertigo line, it was kind of like disconnected from the larger DC universe, even though it was technically still part of it. And you did have like, I remember there was one issue of the Morrison stuff where they had the Justice League, but they were just kind of like side characters.
Yeah.
And mostly they don't really. And in season 2 of Doom Patrol, there is this one scene where Cyborg's at like a crime scene, and they do make, and the other cops make reference to the whole thing about like there being more superheroes in the world.
Okay.
So I think they are still in the same Earth. Don't quote me on that though.
Okay. Because like I said, I did not, I said, well, the Teen Titans, well, they're not Teen Titans, they're Titans. Because they're most definitely adults in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, like the costumes on Hawk and Dove, I was sold. I said, man, that was fantastic.
And Robin too. I like the Robin.
And Robin, yeah, the costume design for Robin is fantastic. I'm glad they're not dwelling too much on the whole thing with him being a cop. They got away from that kind of real quick.
Yeah.
And sent him off on the road with Raven. So I kind of like that. Because I never understood the rationale of Dick Grayson being a police officer anyway. I never understood, why he would even go that route.
That was a nod to what they did during in the Nightwing comics, because there was this period when he decided he wanted to try to he wanted to become a cop because he wanted to try to see if he could kind of apply the skills he learned as a vigilante and try to find a way to work within the law as well. These are like vague memories going back 20 years now, so I don't remember it that clearly, but I do remember there was this storyline where he became a cop in the Nightwing comics.
Right. So I mean, like I said, I wasn't sure how I would take to the notion of a grim and gritty Titans, but as long as in my head canon, I can say, okay, well, this is taking place on Titans Earth or whatever, and divorce it from the Titans I know. But you know what's interesting about it is that even though it is like kind of like this darker take, like it's still pretty true to the characters, right? Yeah.
Like they're it's not like it's not like Man of Steel or Batman v Superman levels gritty, right?
Yeah.
Or like it twist like it is still very much those same characters just put in a darker setting.
Because the guy that plays Dick Grayson, I think, does a very good job of playing a conflicted Dick Grayson.
Yes.
Because there's something going on with him, because he's way more violent than he's ever been before.
Right.
And he's downright vicious. So and he acknowledges that there's something going on with him. Right. And the guy who plays him does a very good job of, conveying that, confliction where he's still trying to do the right thing because he's trying to help this girl. But he's got his own issues that he's trying to deal with, and he really doesn't need this right now. But being Dick Grayson, he still does the right thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really like that guy.
Yeah. It's so nice to have a Dick Grayson who's actually a layered character as opposed to what we got with Chris O'Donnell in the Schumacher movies, which was just basically like acting like a 12-year-old when he's like 37.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, he was a little bit too old. He was a little bit too old for that role.
Yeah, I mean, especially and just like way too petulant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I think this is like the first time we've gotten like a live action Dick Grayson that feels really true to the character in the comics.
Yeah.
Because the only other ones, I'm pretty sure the only other ones it was Chris O'Donnell and Burt Ward, and that was it, right?
Those are the only two Robins I can remember.
That's what I can remember.
You don't go back to the serials.
Oh, right, yeah,
1940. So you got to go back to that for versions of Robin. But if we're talking about like modern day, yes, like Burt Ward and Chris O'Donnell, and that's it.
Yeah,
and of course the animated.
Right. Yeah, series, which was really good, obviously. But everything they did there was awesome. Yeah.
Lauren Lester, he was Robin. He was good.
Yeah, I did like that when they did the animated series where they did the college age Dick Grayson as opposed to doing it as a little. So that it was a really smart idea because then it allowed them to have him transition into being Nightwing and then they brought in the younger Robin. So, although I didn't really like what they did with Tim Drake, how they kind of merged him with Jason Todd, because like that was one thing that kind of makes me suspicious because they're like, it seems like they're going the same route with what they've announced about Tim Drake in season 3 of Titans. So, I mean, Tim Drake's my favorite of the Robin characters. So it's like a real disservice, I think, to that character where we haven't really seen him in any real iteration. Because even in Young Justice, he's very much a small player in that show.
Young Justice, which to date is still like the best itinerary. It's not called Teen Titans, but yeah, it is Teen Titans.
Yeah.
That's still like Young Justice was just like, the first couple of seasons of that was like mind-blowing,
Yeah. I'm on the 3rd season and I'm still trying to get, you know what it is? It's that it's more the Outsiders focus because I've never really cared about like Halo and Geoforce. So
yeah.
So it's not been as interesting to me as like when it was, I love the Aqualad they created for that show.
Yeah. Well, that was the best thing about that show. Yeah. The Aqualad. Yeah. I never was, I have to admit that the appeal of the Outsiders was something that I never understood why everybody loved the Outsiders. Halo and Geoforce and Metamorpho. Metamorpho, I've never cared. It was a character I never. People love him. I always liked Simon Stagg. He was more interesting.
And I've always liked Black Lightning and Katana, and those are that's really it. Like if I was going to do Outsiders, I probably, like if I was going to write like an Outsiders book, I would probably just keep Black Lightning and Katana and Batman and then throw in a bunch of other people.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know what? If you got Batman, Black Lightning, and Katana, you really don't need anybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To be honest, yeah.
And so,
but for some reason, DC always has this tendency to want to make Black Lightning Batman's grown-up sidekick.
Yeah.
Which I have a problem with.
Yeah. I did see there is the new Outsiders book. I got the first volume of that, and that was okay. It was decent enough. Okay. But it wasn't anything like amazing. But it's entertaining enough.
Okay.
Anyway, WandaVision, that finale. First off, I loved how Paul Bettany trolled everybody because he was saying in interviews and stuff that at the end of WandaVision, he gets to work with an actor he's always admired. And it was himself.
It was himself, of course. Good for him. And it was such a wonderful conflict between the two visions.
Yes.
Because it didn't end the way. Because we already got Wanda, she's going around, she's throwing energy bolts back and forth with Agatha. But the Vision, who is of course a more cerebral character, he resolved the conflict with the other Vision through conversation and logic and reasoning,
Yeah.
which I thought was flat out brilliant.
Oh, it was such a Vision thing to do.
Yeah.
It was so perfect for that character. And it's just like, I love the interaction when he's like, have you ever heard of the ship of Theseus? And then White Vision's like, well, naturally.
Yeah. It's
and then just I
had to look it up. I said, I've never heard.
Yeah. And also, I require elaboration. Like, it was just so, the way Paul Bettany played both those two different Visions was just, I mean, you know what? He was never someone that I would have said would be like, and this just, as we said multiple times when it comes to these movies and the MCU in general, like the casting is just so on point.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
And so unexpected in a lot of ways. Because I never would have thought Paul Bettany is the Vision. He's never someone that would have jumped to my mind. Like my personal pick, like when I was like fan casting and stuff, I always thought Alexis Denisov would have been an amazing Vision.
Yeah, somebody like that. Paul Bettany is like somebody I would never thought of, but like with so many other characters that we've seen, now I can't imagine anybody else.
Yeah.
If they ever do Vision again, it's going to be a while before we get another actor. But it doesn't look like we're going to get that, because now I was fairly certain that the Vision was going to come back. I just didn't expect that this was the way he was going to come back. Yeah. So now we do have the Vision back in a way, because apparently he's got all the memories.
Right.
That, of the original Vision.
Well, it seems to me that, it seems to me it's going to be kind of like what they did in the comics, because the White Vision, he had all the memories of the original Vision, but he had no emotional connection to him, because he didn't have Wonder Man's brain engrams. So
exactly, yeah. But he in this, now in the MCU, he doesn't have that. Anyway, the original Vision didn't have. He had Jarvis. He had, that was his template for his personality. So now I guess this White Vision, he has to find a new personality.
Well, yeah, because it's like Banner said in Infinity War, like your interface, it's like a complex series of interfaces, right? You've got Tony, Ultron, Jarvis, me, and it's like all of those mixed together.
Exactly.
Plus the Mind Stone, like kind of linking it all together. So, and now he's got all those memories, but the personality is going to be something different. So I'm really curious to see where they're going to take this.
Like I said, I knew we were going to get the Vision back. I just didn't think we were going to get him back this way.
Yeah.
And where they go from here, I have no idea. But I don't care. WandaVision, I'm sold. WandaVision has sold me.
Oh yeah.
On whatever they do from here on out.
Yes.
Because it was so masterfully put together. And it's a long journey that we took to finally see Wanda become the Scarlet Witch, but it was worth it.
It was so worth it. And Elizabeth Olsen is just another one of those actors that never would have thought of her in a million years for Scarlet Witch, but my gosh. And like, I had nothing against her in the other movies. It's just, she didn't really have a whole lot of room as a character that much. Like we got a little bit of flashes like in Civil War and in Infinity War, but there wasn't a whole lot of stuff going, a lot of heavy lifting that she had to do. In this, like, she's just an incredible actress.
I mean, because when you think about it, because there are some episodes that she's not in it much, but a lot of the heavy lifting of the series was on her back.
Yes.
And she stepped up to the plate. And Paul Bettany as well.
Yeah.
They both stepped up to the plate. And they said, again, this is the thing where they took two relatively minor characters that you would have never guessed would have been the linchpin the way they were in WandaVision.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was just like, that finale was just, and I've been hearing a lot of people saying, well, Wanda didn't suffer enough and she should be punished for what she did. Well, who's going to punish her?
But you know what
she's got the freaking dark hole at the end. We see it with the dark hole. So, and even Agatha says, well, you know what? You're more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. So let's face it, who's going to punish her?
Well, even that, I mean, the story's not necessarily over. Like, this is just the start of something new, right? Like,
Yeah,
we're gonna
exactly.
see.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's. And this is something that annoys me with a lot of the fandom is they they want it all to be answered right away. But you got to finish the story's not finished, right? It's just this is just one chapter in the story.
There's an old saying. The reason God invented time is so that everything doesn't happen at once.
Mm.
That's what a story takes time to tell. It doesn't all happen at one time.
Exactly.
So yeah, we're watching the evolution of a character, of several characters, because we also saw the evolution of Monica Rambeau.
Yes. Yeah.
Jimmy Woo, Darcy. Darcy really should have had some kind of pithy inline instead. Well, she just left, But we saw evolution of characters in here,
right,
on their way to the next step. Monica Rambeau. We saw the Skrull.
Yes.
Well, he wants to see you. She said, "Who?" And the Skrull just. I said, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
So it looks like we're going to be getting her, because we already knew that she was going to be in Captain Marvel too. But now it looks like we're also going to be getting her in Secret Invasion. So
yeah,
and it's going to be awesome seeing Teyonah Parris interacting with Sam Jackson. I'm really looking forward to that.
I mean, this is an evolution. These characters, we've watched one story. Now we're going to see them go on to another one. Some of them we will see go on to another one.
Yeah.
And we already know that we're going to see, because that's practically being confirmed, that one is going to be in Doctor Strange 2.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But a lot of people are upset because they didn't get the X-Men, they didn't get Mephisto, and I guess the greatest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing everybody that he was going to be in WandaVision.
Yeah. Oh, everybody swore out. Oh, it was going to be.
Oh my God. Everybody was Mephisto at one point, right?
Yeah, everybody. At one point, you thought it was Mephisto.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it. I thought it was going to be Mephisto too. Yeah.
But it's like every single character was Mephisto, right? The Stork was Mephisto. The Mailman was Mephisto. Ralph.
Everybody was Mephisto.
Also, I gotta love Marvel's trolling with Evan Peters and making everybody think that they're gonna be bringing in the First Class X-Men, and that they just turned into a boner joke in the end.
Yeah. But so I actually like that. I said, well, good.
Yeah, same here.
I mean, there was a lot of people that was pissed off about that, because they felt that Marvel was having a joke at their expense, and yeah, they were. It was a red. You know what? That was a classic red herring.
Yeah, yeah.
They dropped them in there, saying, "Okay, well, the fans will all be following this, and in the meantime, we're going to be over here doing this."
Yeah, yeah. I mean. Masterful, epic troll.
Classic misdirection.
Yes, yeah.
I
mean, it's just, I just like everything about this show was. I don't think I would change one thing about this show. It's just
not one
pitch perfect. Like,
and I'm just waiting until I have like a day, because I just want to take a day and I want to watch the whole thing again, all in one, clip.
Yeah.
Just to savor, the performances. But Catherine Hahn, Elizabeth Olsen, and Paul Bettany. I have a lot of credit for Deborah Jo Rupp's agent, who managed to get her credited in every episode, even the one she didn't appear in. Deborah Jo Rupp had a credit. So she's got a fantastic agent. So I give her agent credit. Everybody, Jimmy Woo, it was amazing television. It really was, in terms of concept and execution.
One thing that kind of surprised me though is that, and I kind of felt the same thing. They keep having characters that are Gyrich-like in the MCU, but who aren't Gyrich. Like you had Ever K. Ross in Civil War was very much playing like the Henry Peter Gyrich role. And then in this, you had Hayward, who's very much like Gyrick, but they're just not putting. They have all these Gyrick-like characters, but they're not calling him Gyrick.
Yeah, they're like stand-ins.
Yeah,
because this guy, and apparently they're going to keep him around, which I mean, I don't know in what capacity, but I would like to know how he got a hold of the Vision's body.
Yeah, well, he because there was a scene that they had planned at the end of Endgame that would have shown Vision's body in the morgue at the Avengers compound. So I guess after Endgame, like when they came in to help clean up and everything, I guess they probably confiscated the body. Because
the Vision, as we see in Age of Ultron, excuse me, which I had completely forgotten. He was built with stolen vibranium.
Yes, yeah.
Which belongs to Wakanda. But he was built also with Stark tech. So doesn't that make him legally Tony Stark owns him?
I don't know because, well, the whole thing about because they reimagined Sword in this series, because in the comics it's a space agency, right? They're supposed to be, it's sentient world observation and research and development, whatever, right? But in this one, it's sentient weapon observation. So they changed that and they're focusing more on so I'm guessing that because Vision is this artificial life form and is basically a weapon, that gives Sword jurisdiction over it under the Sokovia Accords or something along those lines, is I guess kind of how it works out.
Well, yeah, I figured that's how they got a hold of it, because they argued that since, my thing is that they said, vibranium has been weaponized before. So that classifies the Vision as a weapon.
Yes.
So we got him. So
yeah.
That's how they got a hold of him. Yeah.
So that's probably how it worked out. But anyway, that's as good a transition as we're going to get into Age of Ultron, which we watched for this week.
Yep.
And for the life of me, I could not understand why this movie was so hated when it came out. I mean, I came back from the theater and I'm like, that was awesome. I love that.
Okay. The movie starts out with the Avengers fighting the hordes of Hydra and Baron Strucker. You don't get more Avengers than that.
Yeah.
That's how an Avengers annual, you open it up and that's what it starts with.
Yeah.
The Avengers fighting Hydra and Baron Strucker. So, I mean, I don't know. To me, that was the perfect beginning right there. The Avengers in action.
Well, it's something you've always said when you talk about it was like a James Bond movie. It's like the cold open of a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
And
I mean, and also because we had the first movie where all the characters got introduced and we got all so we don't need that now. So now we can just get right into the story. This movie gets into the story within the first 10 minutes of the movie with that whole assault on Hydra and Baron Strucker. It gets into the story.
One of the things I also like about it, what it does, and this is also what the James Bond movies help accomplish, is it shows you that there are other missions the Avengers have done, you just don't see them. It has that implication there. Whereas if you look at something like the X-Men movies, it kind of feels like the X-Men only have their missions that appear in the movies.
Yeah, they just sit around the mansion most of the time.
Yeah. So I did like that you get this sense that the Avengers haven't just been sitting around the past few years. They have been doing other missions together.
Well, there's that wonderful scene during the assault with Baron Strucker. He's walking around and he's giving orders and everything like that. And one of his grunts said, "Yeah, but Baron, these are the Avengers." And he says, "Yeah, well, call up the troops and do this and recalibrate the laser cannons." And the guy said, "Yes, but Baron,
it's the Avengers." I love that.
Don't you get it? It's the Avengers. So apparently, the Avengers have a reputation. because this guy's shitting in his pants, frankly.
Mhm.
Baron Strucker just walking around with his monocle talking shit. And this guy's like, Baron, he's pretty regularly called by. He's like, Baron, it's the Avengers. Yeah, but recalibrate this and do this. Baron, the Avengers.
I think
can we just evacuate the base, please? And
if I've got one disappointment, it's that this is the only time Baron Strucker is so underused, right? Like,
oh yeah,
Thomas Kretschmann he's great, and I would have loved to see more of him playing Baron Zemo, especially because in Winter Soldier, right? And I know eventually we got the story in Captain Marvel about how Fury lost his eye, but in Winter Soldier, Fury has that one line to Cap where he says, last time I trusted somebody, I lost an eye. And you had and then you had Baron Strucker in this. Like, my headcanon at the time was that Strucker was that friend.
Exactly.
And that's how I would have done it.
Yeah. That's the same thing I thought too, that it was Strucker.
So I felt that was kind of a missed opportunity.
Mainly because he's also got that thing with the monocle.
Right.
Which is like a fake eye.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was a nice little parallel to, like the eye patch.
Yes. Put the little one down over in the crib so she finally fell asleep. But yeah, I loved pretty much everything about this movie. Like the whole Thor Vision Quest thing is a little bit kind of iffy, but other than that, I love this movie. I think.
You know what? Okay, I watched this movie today, and you know what I was really surprised at? There is a lot in this movie.
There is, yeah.
This movie is packed with a whole bunch of. I mean, we're talking about. You know what? I forgot Claw was in this movie.
Yeah. This is when he was introduced.
I completely forgot he was in this movie because that's how Ultron gets the vibranium. Because Claw's got a whole shitload of it that he stole from. Wakanda.
Yeah.
And we have what's his name? Stellan Skarsgård. He shows up in a cameo. Peggy Carter shows up in a cameo.
Idris Elba.
Idris Elba is high. You got a ton of cameos in this. And I'm looking at this, oh my God. Yeah. It was a whole bunch of people that I'd forgotten was in this movie, as well as a whole lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of story in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I completely forgotten about. Which I guess another reason why I love the movie so much. Because, this is a movie that I walked out of it. I felt like I got my money, more than my money's worth.
Same here, yeah.
In terms of sheer story and spectacle, yeah, I got my money's worth.
Yeah. I think, did you catch, speaking of, so much being in this, did you catch the Angel reference in it?
Who?
Angel, to the TV show.
No.
So when Thor is having that, when he has that hallucination scene, when he sees Heimdall, you see there's this one shot where they have these like three like creatures, and it's a wolf, a ram, and a hart.
Okay.
Wolfram and Hart.
Oh, Wolfram and Hart. Okay. I got you. No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
I watched this movie. And I do want to watch this movie again simply because I'm sitting there, I'm saying, damn, I don't remember that, which goes to show you how long it's been since I've seen this movie.
Well, speaking of cameos too, I mean, we get Sam and Rhodey in this too.
Yeah.
Like we get that party scene. And I do like because that's something everyone complained about. Well, where's Rhodey in the first Avengers movie? And so I did like they brought him in here, and they kind of show, well, Rhodey's doing his own thing. He's got his own missions that he's flying.
Well, that's what he's talking about, because they got the running gag where he's telling the joke to the Avengers and they just don't find it funny, but then he goes and tells it to regular people and they'll crack it up all over the place.
Yeah, I did love that when Thor's like, wait, that's the whole story? He's like, yeah, it's a War Machine story. And Thor's like, oh, well then, yeah, it's okay then. It's good.
But see, okay, context. You're talking to a guy who's been kicking frost giants in the ass since he was a teenager. So, yeah, I mean, this isn't exactly going to impress Thor. You got to talk about fighting fire demons, and then he'll say, "Oh, really? You did that?" Otherwise, nah.
I did like that. He's like, "Why do I even talk to you guys?" Like,
yeah, why do I even talk? But it was nice to see him. Matter of fact, I love that whole party scene.
Yes, it was great.
But I love scenes. I always love scenes. And when I was writing fan fiction, those were my favorite scenes to write. Where's just superheroes just hanging out?
Yeah, same here.
Just sitting around, just bullshit.
Yeah, and also I like that. Sam Wilson. You got him. He says like, it's like, oh, if it was a firefight, and then Steve's like, well, next time I'll call you up. And Sam's like, wait, hold on, no. I was just trying to sound tough.
Yeah, and he also makes reference to the fact he's off doing his own thing.
Right. He says, I'm looking for Bucky, basically.
Right. Which again is another thing that I like about this movie, is that it implies that all these other characters have been going on doing their own thing. They, they just haven't been sitting around waiting for the Avengers to show up and call them. These characters are off doing their own thing.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things about this movie is Hawkeye, because I think in this movie they really kind of show that Hawkeye is kind of the glue that keeps the Avengers together.
Right.
And that also comes up again in Civil War, right? When he says, I retire for 5 minutes and all goes to hell.
Yeah. I love the scene where he, because he's the one that stops the Scarlet Witch. When she's putting the hex on everybody, he just turns around, takes the arrow, poof, and he said, "No, I did that mind. I ain't doing that again." Because he sees it coming. Again, Hawkeye is the guy who sees things coming before anybody else.
He sees everything, right? That's the whole thing. And that I know a lot of people didn't like the farmhouse scene. They said it felt too long. I thought the farmhouse scene was great character work, especially for Hawkeye, because there's that scene when him and I can't remember Laura is his wife's name, I think, played by Linda Cardinelli, and she says to them, I see these guys and these gods, and he says, you think they don't need me? And she's like, no, I think they do, and that's even scarier.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole thing that I have always said about Hawkeye, when people want to, well, Hawkeye, well, he's just a guy who shoots arrows. I said, no, you don't get it. This is a guy who, through his own skill and training and talent and force of will, has made himself skillful and competent enough to be able to fight beside super soldiers, men with, transistorized armor, and gods. And they respect him for it.
Yes.
That's the whole thing of Hawkeye. He's the one true human in the middle of all these other, because Tony Stark is like so friggin' out there that, he's like operating on his own plane.
Right.
Captain America, he's a super soldier, and he's got like this higher moral thing. And Thor's an Asgardian. He again, it's another totally different level. But then at the core of it, you've got human characters like the Black Widow and Hawkeye.
More so Hawkeye, because Black Widow has had like surgical enhancements and all that kind of stuff, and she was raised up in this spy environment. But Hawkeye he grounds the Avengers.
It's the human perspective, which is why he took her back to the farm.
Yes, yeah.
What's the next thing that we see? Which is like the most basic thing that you can do on a farm. Well, Captain America and Tony started chopping wood.
And I do love that scene. Tony says, "Don't steal from my pile," and Cap is like 10 times as big as his.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, dude. We can obviously see you don't spend a lot of time chopping wood. But again, it's a great scene in that we get to see once again Steve Rogers and Tony Stark talk about their differences.
Yes.
And as I said before, I probably mentioned this before, but another reason why I love this movie is that it's another like we were talking about before. We talk about character development. Tony's PTSD going to a new level.
Yes.
Because that's what this movie is about. Because matter of fact, Tony fucks up one time. And then he does, and Bruce Banner even said, wait a minute, you just did this and it didn't work. And now you want to do it again with it's like the cat never stops.
Well, that was one thing that, watching this again kind of bugged me, is that I understand why Tony I don't think Tony does a really good job the movie doesn't do a good job of convincing us that Tony has sold Bruce on this, right? So I like why Bruce agrees to put Jarvis in the Vision. That's something that's still just kind of like, all right, that seemed a little bit too easy, right? He says, hey, look, we're mad scientists. So, and then Tony, like, oh, okay, well, you put it like that, then I'll do it.
I mean, but they are.
They are,
I mean,
but I mean, from the character standpoint, I don't really understand why that convinces Bruce to go along with it. Like, if anything, I think that should make Bruce think, maybe we shouldn't be mad scientists.
Bruce is gonna go. Bruce is gonna go along with it. Bruce, I never had any doubt he was gonna go along with it because Tony Stark is just that type of personality that he just overwhelms you, and he suckers you into buying his bullshit.
Yeah,
which is basically what Tony Stark is very good at. He's very good at making you buy his bullshit.
Yeah. Although that was just one thing. Bruce's going along with that. I just wasn't sold on that. That was
okay.
Just my thing. And that might just be me, but I just felt like that was one thing that jumped out to me this time.
Mm-hmm. Because wait a minute. You just saw that Ultron just went and hijacked your plan to put a shield around the world. So now you just turn around. Well, okay. Well, we know what we're gonna do. We're gonna stick this AI into this body that Ultron created. But again, as I said before, that's Tony Stark. Tony Stark's major flaw is that he thinks he can solve everything through technology. At his core, Tony Stark has no faith in humanity. Yeah, he really doesn't.
No. And you know what? There are two things, and just going on another tangent, something that just came up to me is there are two things I expected in this movie that we didn't see happen. So the first is because before this movie came out, the descriptions of it said that Ultron was like that Tony dusted off this old peacekeeping proposal called the Ultron program, and they make reference to that when Bruce says this, when Tony says this could be the key to creating Ultron, Bruce says, I thought Ultron was just a fantasy, right? So you get this sense that this has existed as a concept for a while. So my theory is, because we knew Ant-Man was coming right after this anyway. So my theory going into this was that that concept would have been drafted by Hank Pym. So I thought we would have gotten some reference to that Hank Pym had been involved in like the drafting of this concept, but we never get any mention of that because, as everybody knows, Hank Pym in the comics created Ultron.
You're right.
So
but here's the confusing thing, because in this one, because we see the Ultron body in Strucker's castle. So what? So okay. All right, never mind. I got it. Never mind. I just reconciled it in my own mind. Go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, my theory is I always thought those are like, destroyed Iron Legionaries that they had found. And like, or they had, parts of, because Tony's armor is always getting blown to shit. So he's got like pieces of it scattered everywhere, especially after, New York. So I always thought that it was just they'd just been collecting different parts of and that also kind of goes into the whole, because they got this whole the Iron Legion going around and helping up with crowd control and all that kind of stuff. So my theory was, and this kind of shows that the Avengers have been active in all this time since the first movie, was that, and Strucker's been collecting these scattered pieces of the Iron Legion that had been destroyed over the past few years.
Which I expect that we'll probably see an amplification of, because we're getting armor wars.
Right. Yeah.
With Rhodey, apparently, who's going to be going around and finding people that are using Tony Stark's tech for rogue purposes.
Yes, yeah. So that'll be really interesting to see. I wonder if we'll get some of the classic Iron Man villains then in that. Like, because we only had Whiplash really as the only classic Iron.
Listen, all I want to see is Titanium Man and the Unicorn.
Titanium Man, Crimson Dynamo, we might see him.
Yeah.
That's another possibility. So there are a lot of different characters they could pull from.
I always loved Titanium Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the Unicorn. Don't ask me why. Unicorn was goofy as hell, but that's probably why I loved him, because I love goofy characters. He was the guy that had the power horn.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I love the Unicorn. Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be cool. I hope we get some of those characters in Armor Wars. What was I going to talk about? The other thing that I thought that would have come up in this is because in the comic books, the Vision was Ultron used the android Human Torch's body as the basis for creating the Vision, right? And we saw in First Avenger, we saw the android Human Torch in that at the World's Fair scene.
Only time we've ever seen him.
Only time we've ever seen him. Yeah.
Which really pisses me off because I love the original Human Torch.
Well, that's why I was hoping that maybe they were going to say that they had taken that body and that was used as the basis for Vision in this movie, which that's how I would have done it instead of just making it complete and like maybe they used the vibranium and bond it to this body that already existed.
Right.
That's what I would have done anyway.
Because that's what they did because in the comic books for the longest time, that was the premise that that Ultron had used the body of the original Torch and repurposed it.
Well, yeah, because Roy Thomas, and I read about this I've been reading Marvel Comics: The Untold Story, and I'm only a little bit into it.
Fantastic.
Oh, it's great. I'm loving it. But one of the things they mentioned is that Roy Thomas, he kind of learned the game early on that when you create something for Marvel, it's going to be Marvel's. Like you're not going to have any. So what he did instead was he took a lot of Golden Age characters and repurposed them.
Yeah, well, yeah. Instead of creating your own characters, that Marvel owns.
Right. So he took like the android Human Torch and kind of gave it the concept of the Golden Age Vision and kind of merged those two concepts together to create the modern day Vision.
And that's a book I always recommend to people, especially when I get into people with this bullshit argument when, because now it's the popular thing, to turn Stan Lee into like this demon that apparently he did nothing but go around stealing everybody's characters and concepts and claiming for his own. And such was not the case.
Yeah.
And I really get pissed off by people, that are like have made it their mission in life to take a piss on his, memory. When if you read the book Marvel: The Untold Story, it's told a lot of interviews with people who were actually there at the time.
Yeah.
And was saying, listen, you know what? Yeah, you know what? People seem to have a hard time with this concept. Yeah, it sucked, but that's how it was. You signed your name on the back of a check, and once you did, Marvel owned your shit.
Yeah.
End of story. I mean, that's what. If you didn't like it, you went to work for somebody else. That's what.
Right.
But you know what? Other comic companies were doing the same thing too.
Exactly.
This was a standard practice across the industry.
It still is pretty much. I mean, it's a practice that remains. Work for hire contracts are still very much the norm.
Yeah. But people want to make it out, oh, yeah, well, Stan Lee stole everything from it. No, he didn't. He didn't steal everything. It's not like he sat in his basement plotting how to rob everything from Jack Kirby and John Romita and Gil Kane, all the rest of these guys. No, such was not the case.
Yeah.
So, but folks, if you haven't read it yet, go get that book, Marvel: The Untold Story.
Yeah, it's very good. Hey, use our Audible code Super Cinema Pod. You can get the audiobook as a part of a free trial. So audibletrial.com, use the promo code Super Cinema Pod. You get a free trial and you can download the Untold Story for free.
What he said.
So anyway, shameless plug out of the way. And and one thing about that always annoyed me is that there's this whole idea that you have to have, a very good guy, you have to have a very bad guy in these stories, right? That's not how it works. Like these stories are a lot more. It's not always so black and white, right?
No.
It's a lot more gray. I mean, when people think of Stan Lee, they think of him as being they think of him as being like, the god of Marvel, that he has control over the whole company, when really it wasn't the case. Like he was just an employee like anyone else. So it's like getting mad at your manager at McDonald's because you're not making $15 an hour. Well, the manager can't really control any of that.
Stan Lee, one thing that you cannot take away from Stan Lee is the guy that made comic books cool.
Yeah.
He he made comic books acceptable to the mainstream,
Mhm.
whereas before they had just been looked down as stuff like for kids stuff.
Right.
He made comic books literate.
Yeah.
I was reading, I remember as a kid reading Marvel comic books. And I'm gonna be very honest here, folks. I credit Marvel comic books for me having a very large vocabulary at a young age. When
Mhm.
I was in sixth grade, I was reading on college grade level. I was reading 12th grade level
Mhm.
because I would read Marvel comics and Stan Lee would stick in these long ass words and I would go look them up.
Mhm.
And then I would use them when I was writing, papers and stuff, and book reports and stuff like that. And the teachers would say, "Well, where did you get that word from?" "Oh, I read it in a comic book." And they
Mhm.
thought I was bullshitting. Them, "Go sit in the corner." No, they thought I was being smart. I said, "No, I read it in a comic book."
Mhm.
So, he made comic books cool. He made comic books literate. You know, he turned them into the art form. Well, not single-handedly, but he had a significant part in turning them into the art form that we now know them as.
Well, yeah, I mean, because famously, the whole reason he created the Fantastic Four was because he was just out of fucks to give. He was gonna quit. He was gonna quit the industry altogether.
He was going to quit, yeah.
And so, is all credit to his wife. She's like, you know what? If you're gonna quit, then just fuck it. Write the way you want to write it.
Yeah. Because as I'm sure everybody listening in the sound of our voices know, Stan Lee was just a name he used for. He saved his real name because he thought he was going to write the great American novel.
Right.
But
and he never did. Then he eventually legally changed his name to Stan Lee.
But I mean, now we know him as the father of the Marvel universe,
Mhm.
which ain't bad.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen. You know what? Everybody's got to make their choices about
Mhm.
how they feel about this sort of stuff. All I know is that the man enriched my life.
Yeah, same.
He made the quality of my life
Mhm.
better. So me, yeah, okay. Maybe he did some underhanded things. Maybe he didn't. You know what? I wasn't in the room when the shit happened.
Mhm.
I don't know what happened. The only ones who know what happened were the people in the room when it happened.
Right.
So, hey.
And there have been so many conflicting stories that have come out over the years about it. So it's impossible to say with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
Because there are just so many conflicting accounts.
Yeah, because everybody remembers everything differently.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anyway,
back to this movie. Another thing that I really loved in this was James Spader as Ultron. Right? I mean, that is just perfect casting right there.
Again, we repeat ourselves with this ad infinitum, and we will keep on repeating ourselves. The casting. Okay, you think of a more perfect voice for a homicidal robot that wants to destroy the world and kill the Avengers than James Spader.
Well, especially because this Ultron was created by Tony Stark. So it's very much like a twisted version of Tony's personality. And James Spader is the perfect voice for like a twisted version of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, exactly. Because they've got that same kind of snarkiness.
Exactly.
In their voice, when they talk. Because to me, the only one that could probably out-snark Robert Downey Jr. is James Spader.
Yes. Yeah.
Without even half trying.
Well, and you can tell that he did his own motion capture in this because, just like his movement, the way Ultron moves, it's so James Spader, like the little head tilt and all that. Like I kept getting flashbacks to The Blacklist watching that.
And I love how Ultron doesn't talk like a robot. He talks like a person.
Yes.
Because he doesn't see himself as a person, but he does think of himself as a more evolved being.
Yes.
In a way. So it's not like he considers himself I don't even think he considers himself to be a machine, really. I really don't think he does.
I mean, even you go back to the comics, particularly Busiek's run, when him and George Perez did their Ultron Unlimited story, which, probably the best Ultron story that's ever been written. And he basically turned Ultron into the prodigal son. He's it's very much, he feels scorned by his family and all that kind of stuff so it's this like obsession with, and you get a lot of that in James Spader's Ultron with like his obsession with Tony Stark.
Yeah. Well, there's even a part in this movie where they said, well, Ultron can't tell the difference between saving humanity and destroying it.
Mhm.
And somebody says, okay, who does that remind you of? And then they
Yep.
say, oh, Tony. They say,
Right.
yeah, the good
Yeah.
point.
Wanda's the
yeah.
one who says that. Yeah.
Huh?
Wanda's the one who says that.
Wanda, yeah. She said that. She said, who does that remind you of?
Mhm.
That they can't tell. And it's the truth. Tony Stark can't tell the difference anymore, because his whole thing is making humanity safe at any cost.
By building bigger and better weapons.
Well, that's supervillain 101.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it is, Oh, well, nobody knows what's better for humanity than me.
Right. And
I'm the one that knows what's best for humanity.
And he keeps going back to this time and time again, right? Like he creates Ultron. And then he tries to fix things by doing the Sokovia Accords, and he ends up breaking the Avengers apart right before an alien invasion comes.
I mean, he can't. And you know what? Yeah, okay, you mean well, but dude, you need to just sit down and go take some deep therapy for a couple of years and just chill for a while. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
it's funny way, but it's a revelatory moment when Wanda says that, when she says, because I'm watching and she said, oh shit, she's 100% right when she said, well, who does that sound like?
Yeah. And I really hope that at some point we get to see James Spader come back as Ultron, because I don't know where the criticism comes from. I thought he was perfect in this movie.
Listen, I don't know why people, because apparently this is like considered to be the redheaded stepchild of the Avengers series.
Yeah.
I really don't know why. I have no idea why.
I mean, it's granted it's not as good as the other three, but it's by no means bad.
Well, nothing is as good, of course.
Yeah.
As the 1-2 punch as we got with Infinity War and Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
But that's on another level.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's hard to compare them. It's not exactly a fair comparison.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It shouldn't even be compared to that.
Yeah.
This is really just like a standalone Avengers adventure. It really is.
Yeah.
Because the first one we get, like I said, we get everybody like introduced, and we get and they got the thing with Loki and whatnot. It's the origin story.
Right.
This is Avengers Annual. This is an Avengers Annual. Age of Ultron.
Yeah. And although there is one big missed opportunity, I think. So first, have you read the Ultron Unlimited story that Busiek and Perez did?
Probably, but that was years ago.
Okay, so there's this one scene where
I wouldn't remember. I'm old.
There's this one. It's well worth tracking down and rereading, because the Busiek Perez run in general was just amazing. It was that was my introduction to the Avengers. And that led me into reading the classic Avengers stuff after
Kurt Busiek. Yeah, I mean, he got him. He got the Avengers.
Yeah, it was like an amazing cover band doing a greatest hits album. That's what the Busiek Perez run was, right? Because it was very much like revisiting those like classic ideas and those classic stories, and just like reintroducing them to a new generation. And like Busiek and Mark Waid probably do that better than anyone else in the industry.
Yeah, Mark Waid. Yep.
And so his Ultron Unlimited story, it has this amazing scene where the Avengers have been, beaten down and everything, and Ultron seems like on the verge of victory, and all of a sudden they burst through the wall. They're all like battle damaged and everything, and you got Thor standing front and center, and he's just like very calm. He's like, Ultron, we would have words with thee.
Oh yeah. I remember. Yeah.
And that was the one thing I wanted that moment in this movie.
We had a great moment in this movie that I am kind of convinced, and people call me crazy, but I think it's a homage to that last gunfight in Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch.
Oh, okay.
The Avengers, they're in the church, and Ultron's drones is all coming at him at a rush, and we had that 360 pan around with all the Avengers fighting and everything like that. I mean, that's the closest that you're going to get to see a comic book panel in live action.
Yes.
Where they just go around. And I said, this reminds me of something. I said, oh, The Wild Bunch. You know,
Oh, I got to watch that movie again. I haven't seen it in so long.
we haven't seen.
Well, I've seen it. I just haven't seen it in a while.
I watch it at least once a year.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
That was my. You know how old I am? This will give you a hint how old I am.
You told me you saw that was the first movie you saw with your dad, right, in the theater.
I am old enough that I saw that during its original theatrical run. That was my first. That was my first growing up movie.
Oh, that was your first. Yeah,
I love it to this day, and I watch it at least 2 or 3 times a year.
You want to feel even older? My first grown-up movie was Blade.
Wow.
And I wasn't even grown up. That was before I entered high school because they didn't card at the theater where I saw it at.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I would see R-rated movies. They didn't stop you and everything like that. You paid your money, you went on in. They said, "Yeah, kid, just sit in the back."
In fact, when I wanted to see Blair Witch in the theater, and I was like, I can't remember how I was under 18. I know that, and I went to the theater and I asked for a ticket to Blair Witch, and the guy's like, "Can I see some ID?" I'm like, "Are you serious? I've seen a ton of R-rated movies. Nobody's ever asked me for an ID." He's like, "Yeah, well, we're asking now." So.
Oh, okay.
And so I guess
that never happened to me.
No, it never happened to me until Blair Witch. Before Blair Witch, like I've been able to see R-rated movies, no problem. But But you know what the weird thing is? But I wish I wanted to find that guy and thank him because not wasting my money on Blair Witch was a good move.
Yeah, Blair Witch. That's a movie. That's a triumph of marketing or internet marketing.
Oh God, yeah.
Because I saw that movie and I just said, "Really? This is what's supposed to be?" So, matter of fact, I like the sequel better.
Yeah, I did too.
Book of Shadows. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was a bit. You know what? Maybe because it was a movie. It didn't have any pretensions about being about something.
Yeah.
But there's a much better movie. It's called The Last Broadcast. If you've never seen it, but it's kind of like, but it kind of got lost because it came out like at around the time of Blair Witch, and it got unfairly tagged as being a ripoff. When actually it's the better movie.
Okay, so kind of like a Stir of Echoes, Sixth Sense kind of situation.
It's the exact same thing. I tell people that all the time. I said, go see Stir of Echoes.
Yeah.
I said, that's another movie that also got unfairly tagged as being a ripoff of the Sixth Sense when actually it's the better movie.
Yeah, Sixth Sense is just, once you know the twist, there's no reason to rewatch the Sixth Sense again.
Okay, here's the thing. People who told me they said they couldn't figure out the twist. I said, did you never see The Twilight Zone when you were growing up?
Well, granted, I was in high school at the time, but I didn't see the twist coming either.
I guess the twist when he was in the restaurant with his wife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I said, oh, he's dead. And remember, she's sitting there and she's not looking at him.
Right.
Talking to him. I said, oh, she's dead.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't say it out loud in the theater.
Right.
I said, in my head. But Patricia knew. She said, okay, when did you figure out he was dead? I told her. She said, oh, okay.
But anyway, not that
it's a bad movie. And people always say that. Actually, it's a pretty good movie, but it's just that it's no more than an extended episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's M. Night Shyamalan. Signs is a much better movie.
Signs is a better movie, yeah.
Yeah, Signs is a better movie. Even The Village.
Oh, I don't think I go that far. I hated The Village.
Even The Village is you know what? I hated The Village the first time I saw it, and then I went back and watched it. And I think what it was that I liked it better the second time because there were so many people in it that since then had went on to better roles. I was able to enjoy because again, when they had the shed that nobody could go into, and Patricia said to me, she said, well, what do you think is in that shed? I said, oh, well, that's where the village elders go to watch football on Sunday. I said, that's where they got their hookup at. Because they know about the outside world.
Yeah, I guess that twist coming right away.
Yeah, I said, yeah, they got the refrigerator with the beer in there. They got the weed in there. They got the satellite hookup. That's where they go Sunday to watch football games. Yeah.
But anyway, in back to Age of Ultron, like And
Yes,
so the
exactly.
thing about there are two big missed opportunities in Whedon's Avengers films. The first one is Cap not saying Avengers Assemble in the first one, which fair enough, we made up for that epically in Endgame, but it still was something of a missed opportunity in the first Avengers movie, I think.
Mhm.
Second is Thor not delivering that classic line from Ultron Unlimited. And they had the perfect opportunity, right? When they're in the church and all Ultron shows up, and Thor says, "Is that the best you can do?" Right? At that point, he should
Yeah,
have just said, "He's like Ultron."
yeah.
He would have
Which is
words
kind
or
of,
something
yeah.
like that.
Which some actually is kind of like a pedestrian thing for Thor to say.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a pedestrian thing. Like you said, at that moment, we want the grandeur.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and have Thor say, "Hey, we would have words with thee." It's a oh shit. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
about. But let me ask you something about something that I think is quite controversial. Do you think they should have killed off Quicksilver?
Okay. I go back because after seeing WandaVision, it's okay. See, I'm conflicted on this because I hated that they killed Quicksilver at first, right? Because I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson was perfect.
He was
Like, you know what? Fuck Evan Peters. I love Evan
Yeah.
Peters, but he was not Quicksilver. He was Impulse.
He was Impulse, exactly. Yeah. This guy was Quicksilver.
This guy was Quicksilver. 100%. This is Quicksilver come to life right out of the comic books. He's got the attitude. He's got the obsession with protecting Wanda. He's got the whole thing about the Pietro Maximoff syndrome that Peter David famously did in X Factor, where because he moves it and thinks at super speed that the rest of the world moves at a crawl for him. So he's always annoyed with the rest of the world because everybody moves too slow for him.
Mm-hmm.
And ATJ does a perfect job of conveying that.
And know something else? I don't know if he did this on purpose. I would like to think that he's a smart enough actor that he did this on purpose. But if you look at his body, you see he's got kind of like a big chest, which I think is because to accommodate larger lungs.
Oh, okay.
But his legs, it's kind of like they're not muscular legs though. But I don't know. His body just looks like it's made for running.
Yeah.
To me, I look at his body. With Evan Peters, his body, well, he's just a skinny teenager.
Yeah, yeah.
But I look at this guy, and he looks like he's got a body that's made for running.
He looks like, yeah, he's got a runner's build, definitely.
Yeah. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely does. But like, all his lines in this movie are perfect. I love that scene when they're trying to evacuate Sokovia and he runs into the police station and nobody listens to him. And he runs back in with a machine gun. And then and then he throws the guys like, "Move, get off your asses." Like, that is such a Quicksilver thing to do.
Listen, he doesn't have time for a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. And I also love when him and Wanda are talking in the church and, Wanda's like giving him orders and he says like, "Hey, I'm 12 minutes older than you."
Yeah. I mean, okay, if we didn't have him get killed, we wouldn't have the trauma that leads Wanda to WandaVision.
Exactly.
So, since I'm not prepared to lose WandaVision, Quicksilver has got to die. However, I can think of few character deaths I've seen in superhero movies that I regret more than Quicksilver. Let me just put it that way.
Absolutely, yeah. Because I would have so loved to see more movies with him, especially with her and the Vision. Because there was a whole thing in the comic books was Quicksilver's rivalry with the Vision.
Right.
And the conflict he and Wanda had over him being this is not even a real person you're in love with. And just that whole especially seeing how great of an actress Elizabeth Olsen was in WandaVision and seeing, Aaron Taylor Johnson and other stuff and knowing how good of an actor he is and knowing how good of an actor Paul Bettany is. Watching the three of them interact in that way would have been amazing. And I'm still holding out hope that in some way we can get Aaron Taylor Johnson to come back as quickly. Because if there's, because we talked about when we talked about Black Panther, we talked about Killmonger. It would be great to see him come back, but I think Quicksilver is a death that you could easily undo without undoing everything that happened in WandaVision.
Well, you had the scene in WandaVision where she's having the tea, but her her astral form is reading the dark hole,
Yes.
and we hear her kids' voices, which says to me that Wanda's looking for a way to bring her kids back.
Yes.
So maybe she's also thinking there's a way to bring her brother. If she can bring her kids back, maybe she can bring her brother back.
Right.
So
and we know we're going to get Young Avengers, right? We know that's going to happen. And her kids in the comic books, they're Wiccan and Speed in the Young Avengers.
Right.
That's right. That's right. My daughter's just chiming in.
So I'm thinking, and especially since, again, we go back to the subtitle of Doctor Strange 2, the multiverse of madness.
Right.
So,
and we know Wanda's going to be in that, playing a big role. So maybe she's messing with the multiverse and trying to find her kids and trying to find maybe Pietro. Like that would be, that's a definite possibility. So yeah, I'm really curious to see what they'll do. I've learned by now not to expect too much from theories, because you know what, Marvel's going to do what they're going to do, and I'm going to love it no matter what anyway. So it doesn't really matter what I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's why, you know what? It's impossible to try to outthink these people.
Yes.
Seriously, because apparently they are operating on a different level than the rest of us are. You know what? They have a plan.
And it's an amazing plan. And
it's an amazing plan.
The only time I've ever been let down by Marvel was Iron Man 3. And they're making up for that because we're getting the real Mandarin in Shang-Chi. So I'm fine with that now. I can deal with that.
I have never understood the hatred for Iron Man 3.
See, well, we can talk about this more when we actually talk about Iron Man 3, and I'll get all into it then. So, you know,
because I've learned never to mention that movie if I'm in arm's distance of Van Allen. That dude is vicious, boy. Not mention Iron Man 3. If don't mention that movie to him if he's close enough to grab you, because he will grab you.
So
yes, grab me.
We'll put a pin in that because I got a lot to say about Iron Man 3. So when we get to Iron Man 3, I'll go off, or I'll get my 5 minutes. So
okay.
All right. Anyway, another thing I liked about Hawkeye in this, this also kind of hints at something Hawkeye does in the comic books when he helps the Thunderbolts, right? And he helps these swarm of villains become heroes. We get kind of a reference to that with how he helps Wanda in this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because there's again, going back to that scene with his wife when he says, you know, they're punks really, and somebody just needs to teach them some manners.
He becomes sort of like an unofficial mentor.
Yes.
But I've always liked the notion of Hawkeye being kind of like a talent scout for the Avengers.
Yes.
That he goes out and he finds, promising young superheroes, and he brings them back to the Avengers. Okay, well, let us train you and, see if it works out. If you like it, you join the team. If not, you get the benefit of our experience or whatever you go want to do with you. I've always liked that aspect of it.
Well, again, back to Busick's run. That's exactly what he did with Justice and Firestar.
Yeah.
Right? He tells he sees them, he sees they want to be Avengers, and he sees the promise and the potential they have. So he takes them back, and he takes them back to the Avengers. He says, "Look, I'm vouching for these two," and they say, "Look, we've only got one spot left on the team, and we were going to give it to you." And then Hawkeye is like, "Well, you know what? They're kids; they can share my spot."
Yeah, give it to
And he's still he's willing to.
I remember that. Yeah, he gives up his spot. I said, "Yeah, give it to him."
They work it out where he gets to stay, and they say, "Look, we can use you guys as reserve members instead."
Yeah.
And then he does the same thing with the Thunderbolts. Like he goes, he finds them out, and he sees that they're really sincere about wanting to reform, and so he takes them under his wing and he starts leading them. And so and we see hints of that here with him saying, they just need to teach him some manners. And when he has that awesome conversation with Wanda, that's one of my favorite scenes in this movie, when Wanda's freaking out in the city and Hawkeye gives her the pep talk. He's like, look, none of this makes sense. The city's flying. We're fighting an army of robots, and I've got a bow and arrow.
Yeah. It gets no crazier than that.
Mm-hmm. And he says, like, look, he's like, but I'm going to go out there because it's my job. And he says, like, you want to stay here? You're fine. I'll send your brother later to pick you up. But if you walk out that door, you're an Avenger, and you gotta fight.
That is one of the great pep talks in film history.
Yes,
it is. He said, listen, we're doing all this. I've got a bow and arrow.
Yeah. And we see that they keep coming back to that idea of like Hawkeye being Wanda's mentor, right? We see that in Civil War when he comes to the compound to get her. And, he tells her, he's like, look, he says, you want to mope, you go to high school, but otherwise, move your ass. And then it kind of pays off at the end when we see that scene of them in Endgame, when they're both standing by the water and they're having that little conversation referencing Natasha and Vision.
Yeah.
Right? So, and I do like, we kind of get these hints of them having like this deeper relationship that doesn't really get to play out that much.
And Jeremy Renner really doesn't get enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
I also think.
I agree.
As Hawkeye, in watching this, and we've been revisiting him in other movies and whatnot, and I've been watching his performance a little bit more, and there's a lot of nuances to his performance that I think he doesn't get credit for, because we see so many different facets of him. We see him as a SHIELD agent, as an Avenger, as a family man, and
as a vigilante too.
As a vigilante, yeah, we see so many different, more than any other character, I think, besides Thor.
Yeah.
But Thor goes through quite a few iterations. But we get to see him in a lot of different roles. And I don't think Jeremy Renner gets enough credit for that.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm hoping that the Hawkeye series on Disney Plus does for Jeremy Renner and his portrayal of Hawkeye what WandaVision did for Elizabeth Olsen and her portrayal of the Scarlet Witch.
Exactly.
And and also we kind of get the idea of him being like a mentor and a talent scout, because we're going to get the Kate Bishop Hawkeye in that series as well. So that ties into it too. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that Hawkeye series when it comes out, because Jeremy Renner is really underrated in these movies, and so I'm waiting for him to get that chance to shine. Yeah,
because it goes back to that scene that we saw him in. What movie was that, where he was sitting up high up and Nick Fury said, okay.
Oh, that was the first Avengers movie.
First Avengers, yeah. And he asked Stellan Skarsgård, he said, okay, well, where's the Hawkeye at? He said, well, he's up there. And Nick Fury said, well, what are you doing up there? He said, well, I can see everything from here.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much, it defines the character.
Yes.
Right there. He said, well, I sit up here so I can see everything. Because he's the guy that sees what's coming before anybody else.
Right. Yeah.
Which is a very good way to describe his character, because he has these conversations with people, and he tells, well, this is what's going to happen if we don't do this.
And it's really a key to how, and that's a hint to how Hawkeye's character has evolved over the years in the comic books. Because originally in the comics, when he first joined the Avengers, he was just the rabble rouser.
Yeah, oh yeah, he talked a bunch of shit.
He was just there to have someone for Cap to verbally spar with, basically.
Yeah, he was just there to piss off Captain America, call him old man, and
right.
All this kind of, yeah.
But over the years, he developed, and he did become what we see Renner doing, where he is this guy who sees all the angles, and he knows the Avengers on a level that nobody other than Jarvis really knows them.
Exactly.
And I think Jeremy Renner does a really good job of portraying that in these movies. And someone's chatty today.
She's got opinions.
She's got opinions. She's been waking up lately in the morning, and she doesn't cry. She just starts yammering away. And I'm like, listen, honey, you wanna have a chat? That's fine. Just wait until after Daddy has his coffee.
Yeah, she's trying to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, she's fine. She's fine. She was just she's just sneezing a little bit.
You'll be in trouble then, my friend.
Yeah. Oh, she's already giving me the stink eye.
When she starts putting them sentences together,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. All
you're
right.
done.
Anyway, other thing in this movie is got to talk about Paul Bettany, obviously. First appearance is Vision.
Yeah, we get, like I said, a lot happens in this movie. We got
a lot happens in this movie.
Vision.
And I do love how they making him worthy enough to lift Mjolnir was such a great way it was such a great shorthand to show that he can be trusted, that he's not Ultron, right? And they set it up perfectly.
Did you love the look on Thor's face when he was able to pick up the hammer?
The look on everybody's face was awesome, especially Thor, yeah. But this goes back to that scene, the party scene, which again, one of the best scenes in this movie is when, and this is exactly what you'd imagine superheroes do in their time off.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Thor says nobody can lift his hammer, so of course everybody's going to want to try to lift his hammer.
Yeah. And you know what? And I love the fact it's on the table because people have this misconception that you can't lift Thor's hammer because it's super heavy. No, it's not super heavy. You just can't lift it.
Yeah.
You have to be worthy. And then I've had this thing with people. Well, who determines who's worthy? Well, the hammer. The hammer is enchanted by Odin, who says that the hammer determines who is worthy. How does the hammer determine who's worthy? We have no idea.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. We don't. The hammer itself determines who's worthy.
Yeah. So I love that scene, especially, we get the hint for what we'll see in Endgame when Steve tries to lift the hammer and it starts to move.
Yeah, you see the look on Thor's face.
And he's like,
and
then my theory is that Steve saw the look on Thor's face and then he pretended he couldn't lift it.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. He said, you know what, I'm gonna, see, we're sitting here having a good time. I'm gonna let him save face.
Yeah. But I also love, Tony pulling out the gauntlet to try and lift it up. And then he gets Rhodey to get his gauntlet and do it.
I mean, come on. If you had given him enough time, he would have whipped up some kind of super thing to try to lift the thing. Tony would have been there all night trying to lift that thing.
Oh, seriously. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
If Ultron had to come along and broke up the party, he'd have been there all night long trying to figure out how to lift that damn hammer.
Yeah.
Instead of just letting it go.
Yeah. And also, I love the little conversation they have at the end, because that is exactly like those types of conversations you're referencing when they're like, wait, the Vision's not really a person technically, so that's why he can lift it. So
yeah.
And then they're like, if you put the hammer on an elevator, the elevator would still go up and down. So it's just like that. And they're trying to justify why
they're trying to lift it. And these are arguments I've heard all the time. People say, well, if you put Thor's hammer on the elevator, will the elevator go up and down? Well, yeah, the elevator will go up and down. Because the elevator is not sentient.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I just love that little moment. And Thor's just and you get the sense that they've had these kinds of discussions a lot, because Thor's like, I'm going to miss these little chats of ours.
Yeah. Because they're trying to figure out how the hammer works. And it's magic.
Yeah.
It's magic. You can't.
Also, this movie does a good job of establishing that friendship between the trio, because this is kind of really the only time we see them just kind of like sitting around shooting the shit.
Yeah. And like I said, I love seeing superheroes just sitting around, just bullshitting, having drinks, and just, not, nemesizing evil or saving the world. They're just enjoying themselves.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And those little character moments, and that's something Whedon does really well, is just those little small character moments like that and those little conversations, which is something too. I was re-listening to our episode on Justice League last night, because we're going to be doing the Snyder Cut next week. And we were talking back then about how these conversations that the characters have are really one of the highlights of the movie. And it's the same thing in these movies too. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would not trade 1 minute of the fight we get between Tony Stark in the Hulkbuster armor and the Hulk. But I also would not give up 1 second of that party scene.
Yes.
Because to me, in my own mind, they're both equally important for different reasons.
Yes. Now another good thing to talk about is that Hulkbuster scene, because we
shoot.
got hints of the Hulkbuster armor in Iron Man 3, but it wasn't quite and so then we see it here, and I love that its name is Veronica.
Veronica, yeah,
right, because his girlfriend, because Betty.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever in your life thought that you would see an actual Iron Man Hulk throwdown?
No, especially not like that. Yeah,
especially not like that. I mean, wow, that was like, yeah, okay, that right there was worth the price of admission, as far as I was concerned.
Well, like that, and every time I watch this movie, because I realize this, my wife mentioned, like, every time when he armors up in the Hulkbuster suit, like, I get excited. And my wife even pointed, and like every time when he has Hulk down, he does the rocket punch thing.
Yeah,
I laugh my ass off.
Go sleep.
Every time I laugh my ass off at that.
Oh yeah, because at this point Tony is desperate. He said, "Please go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep."
And also that one part when Hulk spits out the tooth and just kind of glares at him, and Tony's like, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, but again, here's the point: Tony Stark again trying to overwhelm a problem through the sheer power of technology.
Yeah.
The Hulk is a primal force of nature that can't be reasoned with or controlled. Best thing you could do is leave him alone until he calms down. But Tony can't do that.
Right.
Because his technology can, he can beat anything with his technology.
Well, I also love that they show that, unlike, certain other heroes and certain other franchises, they care about what happens to other people around. Right. That's why Tony's got the Iron Legion to work crowd control. That's why, Tony catches the elevator when he's throwing down with the Hulk. That's why he scans the building for life signs before he chucks the Hulk into it.
And you see, they make a definite point of saying no life signs detected.
And even Tony says, like, well, how fast can I buy this building?
Yeah, because he knows what's going to happen. And he even there's a couple of times where he's trying to take the Hulk out of the city.
Yeah.
During the fight, he's trying to take him out of there, but the Hulk gets loose, and but yeah, I mean that I said, yeah, I get excited when that is like, if I was going to make a list of the top 10 fights in superhero movie, that would be in the top 5.
I think so too. Yeah,
that would be in the top 5.
That's an epic throwdown. And also, I love the puny banner reference we get there too, right? When he says you're stronger than her, you're smarter than her, you're Bruce Banner. The Hulk gets based like right. Don't mention puny banner.
Yeah, right. Oh wait, sorry. Don't mention puny banner. Okay. Because the Hulk gets pissed. I said, oh man.
But I also love that they found a way to use the Hulk, because there's a whole thing where they have what's called the Code Green. So you get the sense that Bruce doesn't go out in the field on every mission. It's only when things get hairy.
Well, he was back in the Quinjet.
Right, exactly.
And he called him and he said, well, is this the code? Because he heard all the chatter going on. And he said, well, is this the Code Green?
There's also in the beginning when, after the Hydra bunker, when he's talking to Tasha and he says, I wasn't expecting a Code Green. Right? So that you get the sense that there have been missions when he's just stayed on the Quinjet.
Well, you know what? The Hulk is, okay, the Hulk is their mother of all bombs.
Yes.
They only pull him out. It's like when in the first Avengers movie, when Tony was talking to Loki, and Loki was saying, yeah, well, I got this alien armada. And Tony said, yeah, but we got a Hulk.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we got a Hulk. So, he's like the mother of all bombs.
Yes.
That they pull him out when, okay, Hulk smash. That's it. It's not like he just suits up every time that they, Now I understand why they had him attacking the Hydra base, because I know somebody is out there saying, well, he was there when they took down the Hydra base. Well, yeah, that's so that we could have that shot of all the Avengers together. Yeah. I mean, come on, And he did come in handy because they had that bunker that had to be taken out. Nobody else could take it out except for him. And he just ran right through the shit. They said, okay, get they said, can you get, and it cracked me up. He just ran through it. That's all he did.
We also love when Natasha's trying to cheer Bruce up. She's like, Thor, give us a status report on the Hulk's progress. And he's like, the hell is filled with the screams of his victims. And they look at him and he's like, not dead strange. It's like, complaints of sprained deltoids and gout.
Hey, well, maybe not dead, dead, but but I just love how he just runs right. It's no plan of attack. It's nothing strategic. They just said, well, Hulk, I said, well, Hulk, can you take out that bunker? And he just runs right through it. And that's it. And obliterates it. And keeps on going.
One of my favorite moments is the running gag that Steve starts when Tony says shit, then Cap goes language.
Oh, yeah. And they keep that up.
You know what? I think we got a missed opportunity in Endgame because, when he sees himself in Endgame and he says, oh, you got to be shitting me. Mm-hmm. I when he said that, I expected the past Cap to be like language. But yeah, I love that moment, especially it's the running gag in the movie when it was like, hey, Steve, he said a bad language word.
And Steve said, and at one point, Steve says, y'all not going to let this go, are you? Yeah. And they say, nah, we don't think so.
We just
want to torture you with this.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of my favorite parts in the movie. Like, a lot of the character stuff is just so well done in this movie.
Again, it's the... Yeah, we love the spectacle, but it's the character moments that we remember.
Yes. Yeah.
And that make us care about these characters and say, okay, yeah, I like that a little bit. I like that a little bit. I like this. I like that. That's the part that you remember. That's the stuff that you remember.
Well, especially on repeat viewings, because I found this when we get to the big throwdown scene at the end, and don't get me wrong, it's an epic superhero battle. It's fun to watch, but the more I watch this movie, the less interested I am in that, and the more interested I am in those character interactions.
Yeah. It's an important fight, but we're invested in it because of all the character moments, that came before.
Yes, absolutely.
Like when Nick Fury shows up, and he really has a nice conversation with Tony Stark. And he tells him, well, you know what? I care about you.
Yeah.
He said, that's why I'm here. I'm not here just to bust your chops. I really am invested because he brought all these people together.
Yes.
So he is invested in them. And it's a very telling moment when, he admits to them, hey, well, you know what? I used to have eyes and ears everywhere. I don't have that anymore. You guys had all this high-tech stuff. You don't have that anymore.
But I love that he still has it, even with everything that happened in Winter Soldier, he still can't shed that, that deception part of his character when still like he's got Hill reporting back to him on what the Avengers are doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because she's with them through the whole movie. So you know what she was doing.
Yeah.
She was calling up every night saying, okay, well, this is what they're doing.
Yeah.
I
also love that little moment too and this kind of hints at that they understand that why the twins are doing this, right? When Hill's giving him a rundown on the Maximoffs and and she says, you believe it or not, they actually volunteered for Strucker's experiments. And Steve's like, yeah, you're right. What kind of psychopath would let a German scientist experiment on them to protect their country? And he says, very telling, she's like, well, we're not at war, Captain. He said, well, they are, right?
Well, they are, yeah.
Like that's what I love about how they're handling. And this is one of the things I love about that I think gets lost by people who don't really read Captain America comic books, where they think like Cap is like jingoistic and he's like pro-American nationalism. He's really not. Like you read the Captain America comic books, even he's much more understanding of how things are really work in the world.
Yeah. And like you said, that scene in the elevator, it's very telling. And I would like to believe that Chris Evans, as an actor, insisted that line be in there because it says a whole lot about Captain America's character. And like you said, his awareness.
Yes.
Because he's telling Maria Hill in that moment, yeah, he understands. He understands 100% why they did that.
Well, and it goes back to even the first movie when Erskine asked him, oh, so you want to go overseas and kill some Nazis, right? And he's like, look, I don't want to kill anyone. He's like, I just hate bullies. He's like, I'm just trying to do the right thing. So for him, it's not about like, what the propaganda's saying. For him, it's a much more personal thing.
Yeah, I get that. But what I'm saying is that Steve Rogers, as a human being, as a man, he's not blind to what his own country is capable of.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because, he did the same thing. He volunteered for, and his country experimented on him.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. I'm saying the same thing.
Oh.
I'm just saying that that's another aspect of that. It's another way of showing that aspect of his character. Because when he wants to enlist, it's not because he buys in the propaganda and he wants to kill Nazis. It's because, look, I see what these guys are doing. I know it's wrong. That's really why I want to sign up. It's not because I want to kill a bunch of people. So he's not buying into the propaganda. He has his own reasons for doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, yeah, like I said, he's not blind to what his own country
exactly
is doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great, again, we go back again. It's a little character moment that says a whole lot if you're paying attention.
Right.
It says a whole lot.
And just like Christopher Reeve is probably the best version of Superman in any incarnation. Like when I think about the best version of Superman, I don't think about any specific comic writer. I think of Christopher Reeve. It's the same thing with Steve and Tony and Thor to a certain extent as well. Like my ideal versions of these characters are Chris Evans, Robert Downey Jr., and Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
that's how I think of these characters.
I mean, I always heard the argument, and people always make this argument. They said, "Well, you can't." But of course, before we had First Avenger, people said, "Well, you can't do a Captain America movie because he's too nationalistic and American values have changed and he's too corny and everything like that." And then what they did, they found Chris Evans, who just portrayed him simply as a man with morals.
Well, I mean, even that argument, and this goes back to what I was saying about people not really understanding Captain, because the Captain America comic books haven't been like that, like the nationalistic type of stuff, since the 1950s.
Yeah, really, seriously.
I mean, like from the 1960s on, when they brought Cap back and they gave him his own title, at first it wasn't even anything to do with politics or American ideals or anything like that. It was just all like funky Silver Age sci-fi stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until Steve Englehart came in that Englehart's the one who kind of introduced the more modern style Cap that we see in the movies, right? Where he's, more conflicted about what his country does, more independent. So like the idea of like Cap being is like this nationalist character, that's an idea that comes from people who've obviously never read any Captain America comics.
Because when you had Captain America, go back and read Captain America during the run during the 60s and 70s. Go read some of the Steranko issues where Captain America was basically an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
He was working for Nick Fury. Yeah, basically. He was going on spy missions.
Yeah.
For S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. So
he was dividing his time between the Avengers and shit. When he wasn't going off fighting supervillains, with the Avengers, he was, working for S.H.I.E.L.D. And there was no politics at all in there. Captain America was basically, for the longest time, really, he was just basically another costume superhero.
Yes. Yeah.
No politics at all.
Right.
Until, like you said, until we got, like the 70s.
Right. And then we get into Steve Englehart and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then we got more back into the whole thing with, but I think the genius of the movies is that they have portrayed him as a man with these values from the World War II era and how those values and morals are in conflict with today's conflicts and morals,
Right. And that really, that's really a credit to Englehart, because he's the one who really kind of introduced that aspect to the character. Because they brought him in during, because Englehart came in and he did the Secret Empire story, in the midst of Watergate.
Right.
It was all in response to Watergate and what Nixon had done, and how, like, how would Captain America react if he knew what his government was up to?
Exactly.
And so, I think they've done a really good job of translating those ideas in these movies. And Chris Evans is really like the perfect actor to really portray that.
Because I like how they didn't, and excuse me, folks, if I'm repeating myself here, but I like how they really didn't dwell on the whole thing because to me, I never liked it when the Captain America comics would do the whole man out of time thing, and how he
Yes.
felt that that he couldn't fit in this new world because no, Steve Rogers is a smart guy. He pretty much figures out how to work a cell phone fairly quickly, and the internet and whatever. He's not a dummy. He figures shit out.
Right. Well, I mean, this is something I always, and this is something that kind of annoys me in the comic books when people write Captain America as if he's a grandfather, right?
Yeah.
They write him as if he's an old man in a young man's body, when really he's not. He's just a young man who's been put into a different time period.
Who's been in suspended animation. Exactly.
Right.
I mean, he's got and of course with the super soldier serum, his neurons are probably enhanced and whatnot.
Right.
Yeah, he's not a dumb guy. So
Yeah.
I like how the movies didn't dwell on that, at all, that whole man out of time thing. Because I'm pretty sure that Nick Fury put him, okay, we're going to put you in this intensive class and we're going to bring you up to speed on history and technology, and what we just didn't see it.
Well, I mean, he also, there's that great scene at the beginning of, and we can talk about this more when we talk about Winter Soldier, but when he meets Sam, and Sam's like, wow, it must have been terrible for you, waking up, 70 years later. He's like, actually, it's not so bad. He was like, food's a lot better. The internet's been really helpful for me to find out what I missed. And he keeps a list of things that he should check out.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what you and I would probably do if we woke up to spend 70 years from now. Okay, well, I got to catch up on this. I got to catch up on that. I'd make a list.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing I would be doing would be bemoaning that I left behind the time that I was in.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I wouldn't bemoan the people.
Right.
I said, oh, damn. Okay, well, I'll give myself 5 minutes to mourn. Okay, let's go. Where's my jetpack? Where's my flying car? Where's my underwater city? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay. Oh, so we got to talk about the most infamous part about this movie, and that's the Natasha Bruce situation.
Oh yeah, well.
So
you know what? I honestly think that that's the one aspect of the movie that most people have. If there's any problem that they have with the movie, really that's it.
I think so too. Yeah. And I think so. This is the infamous scene, right? When they're at when Bruce says, I can't have this. I can't have a family. I can't have kids. Right. And she says, neither can I. And she says, in the Red Room, they have this graduation ceremony where they sterilize you so that there's nothing that can distract you from the mission. And then she says, do you think you're still the only monster on the team? Now, my read on that scene is not her saying I'm a monster because I can't have kids. It's I'm a monster because I'm an assassin who was basically designed to kill.
Yeah.
That's how I always read that scene. I will admit though,
a lot of people didn't read it that way though.
And I will admit, and the writing in that scene is clunky.
It's nebulous.
They don't do a good job of really portraying that well. But I think you have to look into the context of him talking about the fact that they're talking about this, the world has seen the real Hulk for the first time. He's not saying I'm a monster because I can't have kids. Neither of them are. They're saying I'm a monster because of look at all the damage I cause.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really more, but it's just really sloppily. And I think part of the problem is just introducing the whole sterilization thing in the first place. Like there's no reason for that at all. That conversation would work. Yeah, that conversation worked perfectly well if you just took out any reference to kids or families at all.
Agreed. Just stick with the whole thing about her being an assassin. She feels she's a monster because she was raised, practically from childhood to be an assassin, to be a killer. She never really had a childhood. It's once you get into the whole thing with, well, I was sterilized, now that kind of like makes you sit back and go, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. 1 minute we talking about sentient robots trying to take over the world, and now you're talking about human sterilization.
Yes.
That's kind of a leap here, folks.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm here for the drama, but yeah, that is kind of a leap. Maybe not in light of the things we've learned about Joss Whedon.
Right, exactly. It
Maybe
makes, in that sense, yeah, I see why
yeah,
he's putting that in there, because this is another aspect
yeah.
of how Whedon being a fake feminist, where he's trying to portray himself as like enlightened and everything, but these other things seep through.
And I don't know why everybody was surprised by that, because I always thought Whedon was a fake feminist.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I never tried. It's like, what's that line from Shakespeare? Methinks he doth protest too much.
Yeah, yeah.
When you work that hard at trying to present yourself as being a, ally, a feminist, and stuff like that, that only makes me think, well, why are you working so hard to try to prove that if you are an ally to feminists, well, then just be an ally. You don't have to, promote yourself as being one so hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. So, and I will admit, I was one of those people who was taken in by it, and it's only now in retrospect that I look back and I'm able to see through it. But it does remind me of Rachel Maddow had this line that she was repeating many times over the course of the past 4 years with the Trump administration. She says, "Watch what they do, not what they say."
Yeah.
And I think that really applies to Whedon.
Yeah.
And I think you do see that in that scene, and just like the whole Bruce and Natasha thing in general, it just like even discounted, because I did not read that scene that way the first time I watched this movie. It was only until after everyone got all up in arms about it that I started looking back and like, okay, well, I can see that now. I can see I see why people reading it that way. But even the first time I saw this movie, before I even thought about that, like I just thought the idea of Bruce and Natasha just seemed like a really odd matchup, and it doesn't really seem to add anything to this movie.
What would be wrong with her just having the same relationship with Bruce that she has with Steve Rogers? Because they're never, they're co-workers, they respect each other, they're friends.
Mm-hmm.
When in the first Avengers movie, that's the impression I got from Natasha and Bruce. They were just friends,
Yes.
They were bonding because they are two extraordinary people in an extraordinary world.
Yes.
So of course they bond over that. To like kind of try to, how can I put this? I get the feeling that Whedon felt like there had to be some kind of romance in the movie.
Yeah.
And he just shoehorned in that one because a romance between Bruce Banner and even though I'm pretty sure they like each other a lot, they just don't strike me as that they would have that vibe. That no.
It just kind of feels like it was done because those are the only two characters that it could happen with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you got Tony's got Pepper, Thor's got Jane, Steve at this point kind of has something going on with Sharon Carter. So you really only have and it's too early for Vision and Wanda to get involved. So all you got left is Bruce and Natasha.
And actually, it's the one aspect of the movie that slows down things because we've got so much shit already going on here.
Exactly.
We don't need this.
Yeah.
We really don't.
Yeah. It's just it's completely unnecessary.
It's the one aspect of the movie that to me is false because there's no reason for it.
I think you can edit out every instance of any sort of hinting at them having a relationship together, and this movie works still just as well, right?
Because it's really because it's really awkward when he comes out of the shower and he says, well, I use up all the hot water. And she said, well, if I'd known that, I would have joined you and everything like that. And I said, ick, really? Really, Natasha, since when did you become, like a shower slut? Seriously, that comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one character interaction in this movie that just does not work. And especially
not that I am opposed to sharing the shower, but I'm just saying that was a line that seemed like wildly out of character for her at that moment. Where she said, if I'd known that, I would have joined you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit to her character. Neither of their characters. This relationship doesn't really fit. And
Hulk smash.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I could.
All right. There's no point in continuing this.
You know I have no clue. I'm sorry, folks.
Oh, okay. That's the perfect note to end this on.
I'm sorry. What can I tell you? I have no clue.
Okay. Any final thoughts about Age of Ultron?
Only that for those of you who maintain you don't like Age of Ultron, I have no idea why.
Mm-hmm.
It's to me, like I said, this is the visual equivalent of those Avengers annuals. I used to wait for the summer for those big 64-page annuals.
Right.
And I would open it up and I would devour it practically by the time I got home, because I would be reading it while I'm walking down the street. Excellent performances.
Mm-hmm.
Great cameos. It's got that absolutely astounding Iron Man and Hulk fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also like at the end how they hint at the nature of the Avengers roster, because that was something that when the Avengers did that in the comic books, when Stan Lee got rid of all the original Avengers and brought in the kooky quartet, right? When it was Cap, Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch, that was revolutionary for the time, because comic book superhero teams, their rosters did not change.
They did not change. Yeah, they did not change.
Justice League, you had the Big Seven. Fantastic Four, you had Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. The X-Men still at this time, it was still just the original 5.
Mm-hmm.
Superhero rosters did not change back then. So when Stan Lee did that, that was something really different at the time.
Right, because at the end of this movie, we get the Avengers compound.
We get the Avengers compound, and we get a new Avengers team, a completely new team, right? We have Cap and Natasha are the only holdovers, and then the rest of it, we got Wanda, we got Vision, and we got Falcon and War Machine in there.
Falcon and War Machine, yeah.
And I think if there's one thing that I kind of regret about the MCU is that we didn't see more of just the new Avengers team. Like, we didn't get like at least one movie where the new Avengers team has a mission or something.
Yeah, we should have had one movie in between with that team.
Right, and I feel the same thing about also in the end of Civil War, like having a movie with Cap's secret Avengers team, right? Because you got that whole situation where Hawkeye and Ant-Man end up leaving to end up taking deals. Like, what was that conversation like? Exactly. I would have liked to see like something like that too.
I would have loved to see that conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like you said, at the end of this movie, we're left with a brand new Avengers team, and we really should have had one movie with that team.
Right. Instead, all we get is like that sequence at the beginning of Civil War, and that's it.
And that's it. Yeah.
So I think, and that's probably another one of those missed opportunities, which, I'm not saying it weakens the MCU at all. It's just something I wish we could have seen.
I wish we could have seen. Yeah. I mean, listen, like I said, I watched Age of Ultron today. It's the first time. I don't know. I'm trying to think of when was the last time. It had to have been a long time, because, like I said, a lot of it, I forgot Claw was in the movie at all. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so to me, it was like watching a brand new movie, and I had a thoroughly good time. I enjoyed myself. Absolutely.
Same here.
It was a blast. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know what people, but then again, you know what? And I've been having this conversation with people because last weekend, as I'm sure you know, even if you haven't seen it yet, the Eddie Murphy sequel, Coming to America.
Right.
Dropped on
Coming to America.
Coming to America. Wow. What did I say?
No, I said coming to, as in emphasizing the number 2.
Yeah, right. So, and there was a lot of negative things said about the movie.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people, and I think okay. Every movie is not supposed to be the perfect movie. Mm-hmm. And I think that people have simply forgotten how to have fun watching a movie.
Yeah.
I really do. People, my theory is that people, and here's where I get in trouble. I think people expect too much from movies. They really do. They want every movie to be everything to them.
Yes.
And that's simply impossible. You know, there's some movies you watch for different reasons. It's like, one thing I always like to say when I write my reviews that some movies are meant to be no more than the equivalent of a Big Mac, large fries, and a supersized Coke.
Yes.
And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to uplift you morally. It's not supposed to improve the quality of your life. It's not supposed to make you feel smarter. It's simply there just to entertain you.
Well, also, when you think about something like Coming to America, the original one, I mean, that's earned its reputation over time, right? It's not a movie that was an instant classic when it came out. It's a movie that reputation has grown. People have watched it and rewatched it on TV and whatnot, and they built kind of the same thing with Ghostbusters, right? Like
Yeah.
It's because it's built up this reputation over time. So of course, they coming out with the sequel 30 years after the fact. Of course, it's not going to be the same experience as the first time because most of you have grown up your whole lives watching the original Coming to America, catching it on TV and things like that.
And you know what? It never can be the same experience that you had watching it the first time. Right. Matter of fact, you know what? I was just delighted to see the fact that they had so many people from the original movie in this one.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's it.
If you think about the Star Wars movies, this is a good example because I remember when Jon Stewart was hosting The Daily Show, he had George Lucas on. And he was talking about the prequels and everything with George Lucas. And he says, well, it's really different depending on, he's like, because my son tells me that The Phantom Menace is my favorite Star Wars movie. And he says, and I always correct him and I say, no, your favorite Star Wars movie is A New Hope. And he's like, but that's the thing, like for a lot of kids who grew up with the prequels as their first Star Wars movies, and this is something, we've said before, that when you catch people at that right age and you introduce them to something, they're going to love it for the rest of their lives.
Exactly. And it's like, Tom Baker is my favorite Doctor Who, because I just happened to catch Tom Baker at the right time. But for other people, they would tell you, okay, well, it's John Pertwee or this other guy or whatever.
Right.
It's a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that people have lost the capacity to just simply allow themselves to enjoy watch. It's like when we were talking about WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that you made the observation, you said that, which I agree with, of course, 100%, because you're brilliant, is that people got mad at the show because the show didn't fulfill their predictions of what they thought was going to happen.
Yes.
They didn't allow themselves to just be entertained by what they were watching. They wanted to try to prove that they were smarter than the writers of the show. And they said, okay, well, this is what they're doing. This is what they're doing. And then when that didn't happen, then they just got pissed at the show and went on the internet and said, well, this show is crap. The show is stupid,
I've been saying this nonstop since that finale is, you judge the show for what it is, not for what you expected it to be. Just because the show doesn't embrace whatever weird theory you concocted, which is almost always a terrible theory, let's be honest. That doesn't make it a bad show. Like, I feel like a lot of these fans, I think they would just be happy if you just gave them a series of movies that's just a bunch of cameos, and they would be totally satisfied.
I remember back when Daredevil on Netflix, version, and there was all these people came out the woodwork with all these theories that Moon Knight was going to be on the show. For whatever reason, I cannot imagine, because there was no hint at all that there was Moon. And then you had the people that was complaining. They said, well, would it kill them to have Iron Man fly by, or to have a Stark Industries sign, or to show the Baxter building and everything? Why would they do that? This is a Daredevil series. And that's what people were focused on. They were focused on because they wanted to see all these cameos and references to other movies and and they hated Daredevil because they didn't get that. But that's what they came to the show for.
Which is so weird because, like, if you there have been things that have done that. Like Smallville was infamous for that, right? All the little Easter eggs and the winking at the audience types, which got really annoying after a while. Like at first, oh, it's cute. Look, he calls his little getaway his fortress of solitude. You know, they do these little cutesy, and at first it's okay, but when it keeps piling up and piling up, it gets really freaking annoying.
Me, actually, to be honest, I like the fact that Daredevil kept all that shit out there.
Yeah,
because that's not what the show was supposed to be about.
Well, also remember going back to the Daredevil movie too. Remember all the Easter eggs and stuff they had in there, where like every single name they mentioned had to have been a writer on the Daredevil comic books.
Yeah.
And it just got really annoying.
Yeah. I mean, that's not what the show is not supposed to be Easter eggs just for the sake of Easter eggs. So then you can get on the internet and say, oh, did you catch that they mentioned Moon Knight? And said, and we're going to get so and so and so and so. And also, going back to what you say, and I'm going to rubber stamp it. Folks, quite frankly, most of the theories y'all come up with anyway is shit.
Yeah.
There, I said it. They are. Most of the stuff y'all come up with, I have no idea where y'all pull this stuff from.
I still remember I remember the theory flying around. There are two big theories flying around with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad.
Mm-hmm.
Batman v Superman, the theory was that Ben Affleck wasn't actually playing Batman. Mm-hmm. He was actually playing Deathstroke. And Christian Bale was going to come back as Batman in the end. And Deathstroke was just going to be posing as Batman. And I'm like, that is like the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. And the other theory is that Jared Leto wasn't playing the Joker, but he was playing Jason Todd, who ended up going crazy after the Joker tried to kill him, and that he became a new type of Joker. And I'm just like, this is just the most utterly insane crap I've ever heard. And all it does is it proves to me that just because you're a fan does not mean you're a writer.
No. Because some of the stuff that these fans come up with wouldn't even make good fan fiction.
No. And we've seen some bad fan fiction.
And we've seen tons of bad fan fiction. Matter of fact, I've seen some bad fan fiction that started out with better premises than. But again, like I always say, you have a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands. And I've talked to some people and they say, well, it's fun to come up with this stuff. Well, no, it's not. It may be fun for you, but when you put it out there, you present this as something that you're sure is going to happen. You're just muddying the waters. It's not like you sitting around with a bunch of your friends and you just, because you and I both know there's a whole ton of comic book based websites, some of them very infamous, that do nothing but indulge in this type of bullshit all day long. Yeah. They present these fake stories as, well, this is a rumor that we've heard. No, it's not. It's just you just throwing this out there, And
you're saying it's a rumor so that people will believe it.
Yeah, and know what? And a lot of people buy into this. I don't know what people have very poorly developed bullshit detectors, I guess. Mine is fine-tuned. I can spot bullshit from a mile away. Yes, I can. And half of that, I read it now. Oh, well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Go and I go on to the next thing. Yeah, that's obviously bullshit.
So, with here's my thing. You want to make up fan theories, knock yourself out. But don't get pissed because your theories don't come true. Like, I had a theory about WandaVision that proved wrong, right? I thought it was going to be Chthon was going to be behind it.
Right.
No mention of Chthon at all. I'm like, okay, I guess I was wrong. That's it. I go on with my life.
Yeah. And also, you weren't going out there on a dozen different websites throwing that out there as a rumor.
Exactly.
That you heard.
Right.
You did it here in the confines of your own podcast.
Right. And not only that, and I didn't say this is a rumor I heard. This is what I think is going to happen.
This is what you do. Exactly. Because this is your form to do that.
Right. Yeah.
You're not, disseminating false information, fake news, if you will, to an unsuspecting populace.
Right.
Who apparently believes anything that, I'm not going to mention no names. We know these websites.
I'll mention a few of them. We Got This Covered, Bounding Into Comics, Cosmic Times. All these sites are pure bullshit, unadulterated, pure 100% uncut bullshit.
And I have told people, listen, stop sending me links from We Got This Covered.
Yeah.
I said, stop there. Well, how do you know that it's not true? Well, yes, I do know it's not true because I have a very highly developed bullshit detector.
Friends don't let friends share links from We Got This Covered.
Yeah, exactly. We don't do this. But going back to what you said, which was Age of Ultron, I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching it today. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to watch it again, not tonight, but I'm probably going to watch it again tomorrow or Friday, simply because I haven't seen it so long and I want to watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, well, we saw it a few weeks ago after one of the WandaVision episodes, because after I think it was after the episode with Quicksilver or something, because my wife is like, oh, I want to watch Age of Ultron again, because she wanted to, because she had only had we'd only seen it like, I think one time. And then we fell down a rabbit hole because we watched Age of Ultron, and then she's like, oh, I want to watch Infinity War now. And then she's like, I want to watch Endgame. So
see, of course, yeah, because of course you can't watch Infinity War and then say, well, I'm not going to watch Endgame.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So that brings, and co-sign everything you said about Age of Ultron. Like it's not as good as the other Avengers movie, but it's still a worthy addition into the series. I still enjoy the hell out of it. We get some great performances. Yeah, the Natasha Bruce stuff should not be in there at all. They should just that should have just been left on the editing floor. But there's some clunkiness here and there, but overall it's very entertaining. The performances more than make up for any missteps in the writing. And I'm going to say it again. I hope we see James Spader and Aaron Taylor Johnson again, because they were perfect as Ultron and Quicksilver.
And listen, speaking as somebody who's been an Avengers fan all their life, it's very hard for me to say anything against a movie with my favorite super team.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Especially when it's as well cast as this and as well produced as this one. And it's got such great fight scenes and such great characterization. This movie is like the best Avengers comic I've read come to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Okay. So next week, it's time.
It is?
We finally get it out of the way. Because
we're going to record.
We're going to record on a different day so that we can actually sit down and watch Zack Snyder's Justice League. It's coming out to HBO Max next week, or this week by when you guys are listening to this episode. And so we're going to sit through all 4 hours and we're going to talk about it. And
I think it's next Thursday.
Yeah.
You're gonna watch the whole 4 hours at one clip?
Yeah. I'm gonna probably take a few. I'll probably have a bottle of whiskey with me, but I'm gonna sit through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll.
Well, that's what I was planning on doing myself. I was planning. Yeah, I'm gonna watch the whole thing at one time.
So we're gonna watch it, and we're gonna talk about it, and then hopefully we can be done talking about Zack Snyder and the DC and DC characters for. Give me 1 year, at least 1 year, when I don't have to think about Zack Snyder and DC Comics movies.
You know what? That's probably, and I've talked to people, some of them, say, oh, I don't know why you complain about it so much. You're going to watch it. Well, yeah, I'm going to watch it, but that doesn't mean I'm not tired of hearing about it every day. It's like, Zack Snyder's Justice League is like the equivalent of Donald Trump. I didn't want to see him on my TV every day either. I wanted him to be doing his job as a president. I didn't want him on my TV every day running his mouth. Well, just the same way, every time I go on the internet, I don't want to hear, about, well, there's another trailer for, oh, did you hear about the new trailer for what? The new trailer is exactly like the old trailer?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tired of hearing about the movie already.
Same.
Yeah, of course I'm going to watch it.
But on the plus side, even though we're getting that, but we're also getting next week first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier's dropping too.
Now, see, that I'm excited about.
That I'm excited for. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm excited about. Because it's something new.
It's something new, yeah.
I mean, okay, maybe. See, here's the thing. I can't believe that there's anything in this movie that's going to be particularly revelatory.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's. And you know what? Because here's the thing: people on the internet, they get their hopes all up about it, and then we got a problem. People these days are so terrified of admitting they were wrong about something. So you're gonna have people, even if the movie is an absolute train wreck, you have people who are gonna dig in their heels and say it was amazing because they've been saying it's amazing for 5 years. So
well, of course, yeah. I mean, I mean, this is like, this is like the Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah.
This is like the Holy Grail for these people. So no matter how it turns out, there will be people that will still proclaim this to be the greatest movie ever made.
Exactly. Yeah.
I myself am not, but then again, I do not look for movies to be transformative religious experiences.
Right.
I look for movies for entertainment. As long as I'm entertained, I'm happy.
Yes, same here.
That's all. And that's all I'm looking for this movie to do, is entertain me. I'm not looking for it to, make my life better or, make me a better person.
Right.
As long as it doesn't make me feel like those 4 hours out of my life that I'm giving to it is wasted, I'm cool with it.
Yeah. Although I got a feeling that's how I'm gonna feel about it. But we'll find out. We'll see
we will all find out together.
Yeah. All right. So join us next week when we talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Until then, Superhero Cinephiles is the Facebook group, Super Cinema Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us, like and share the podcast, like and share the YouTube channel, give us a review if you can. And that about does it for us. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening. And as always, good night, good evening. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Visit us on the web at superherocinephiles.com and remember to subscribe to watch more of our videos.